Following the assassination of Charles II and the reassertion of power by Queen Mother Elizabeth Kotromanić, King Wenceslas IV of Bohemia marched into the realm of St. Stephen in April of 1386 and made sure that this time Prince Sigismund would be King Mary's consort and co-ruler. The agreement made that Gjord also loaned some castles and territory to Sigismund's cousins Jobst and Prokop for a period of time. After that, in the summer of 1386, Queen Regent Elizabeth and King Mary went down south to Slavonia in the hope that they could negotiate with the rebels. Their retinue was ambushed and Palatine Nicholas Garai Sr. killed in the attack. Elizabeth and Mary were captured and imprisoned. With the Palatine dead and the regent and monarch captured, the court scrambled, leading to some of the court nobility banding together to form some sort of government in the name of the captured regency. They attempted to negotiate with the rebels, offering them pardons and offices, but nothing came of that. In January of 1387, Queen Mother Elizabeth Kotromanić was allegedly strangled in front of her daughter. But then, from a distance, suddenly re-emerged Sigismund von Luxembourg himself. Those in control at court declared their support for Sigismund and effectively declared him regent, in line with Louis's will and Sigismund's right as Mary's husband. And now Sigismund advanced, like a noble knight in shining armor, to rescue his princess. He failed. And after that failure, Sigismund and his supporters took the next obvious step. An assembly was held where Sigismund was elected as the new king. Sigismund promised he would respect the old rights and customs of the realm and agreed to severe curtailments of royal power, as well as appointments of his supporters to high office, along with quite significant grants of royal land and sources of revenue. And so Sigismund was crowned on the 31st of March 1387 at Székesfehérvár with the holy crown of St. Stephen by the Bishop of Veszprém, and Stephen Lakvi, his close ally, was declared Palatine. Now I know what some of you that have been following this history for a while are going to say, but the Archbishop of Esztergom had died a few weeks earlier in February, the Archbishop of Kalosha was not within the realm, not to mention the crisis in the church enveloping most of Europe, but more to the point, a good portion of the realm was already in open rebellion, so Sigismund's legitimacy was already being questioned. For that reason, Sigismund sent an army under Ivan Frankopan, which, assisted by the Venetian fleet, rescued King Mary in late 1387, driving some of the rebels to retreat into Bosnia. Venice was helping Sigismund as it favored a continental candidate to the throne of the realm of St. Stephen rather than one from Naples, again fearing that any power controlling both sides of the Adriatic was a threat to its trade routes. Around the same time, another force under Nicholas Garai Jr. caught and killed Ladislav Horvat. King Mary, now rescued, became nothing more than a rubber stamp of legitimacy, confirming all of Sigismund's decisions in case anyone should still insist legitimate authority was hers. But Sigismund was starting to suspect something. All this internal support came at a very high price to be paid repeatedly. His supporters had been conditioning their support for him on high office and big grants of land and money and rights to collect taxes, and as time went on it started to seem like they were extorting the crown in exchange for their continued support. And Sigismund was running out of money fast. The constant extortion squandered all the money and revenue streams that Charles I Robert and Louis I had built up before him. Sigismund even had to mortgage his title of Margrave of Brandenburg to his cousin Jobst for a significant amount of money. Sigismund also managed after some difficulty to get his cousins to return that land that was loaned to them in Hungary years earlier. And while Sigismund was wasting money and attempting to consolidate his rule, the Ottoman Sultan Murad I saw an opportunity for further expansion. In June of 1389, a small coalition of Balkanic princes, the local contingents of the Knights Hospitalier, and some vassals, and some allies, and some enemies of Sigismund gathered to stop an Ottoman incursion into Kosovo. In the usual strategy of medieval warfare, they attempted a charge straight for Murad I. And it worked. King Tvrtko I of Bosnia received congratulations for the great victory, and many expected that the death of Murad I would bring grave instability to the Ottoman Sultanate. That didn't exactly happen, as Murad I's heir Bayezid I swiftly took over from his father. On the Christian side, Serbian Prince Branković took over the lands of Serbian Prince Lazar, who died in battle, while Lazar's family fled to the Ottomans, where his son Stephen Lazarević, like a significant portion of the Balkanic Knights, would enter Ottoman service. Back up north, Tvrtko I of Bosnia had continued supporting anti-Sigismund rebels for the sake of his own pretensions on Dalmatia. But after Tvrtko I died in 1391, the nobility of Bosnia elected his relation Stephen Dabisha to succeed him. And Dabisha and Hrvoje Vukčić Hrvatinić made peace with Sigismund and submitted to him in vassalage, returning all the territory they had taken, and turning against the Horvat brothers. Ivan of Palizna is said to have died at some point during all this. Meanwhile, Sigismund, sick of the constant demands for favor, started to reassert his authority as king. He sacked Stephen Lakfi, his most prominent supporter, from his position as Palatine, and started promoting other loyalists, some of whom were from outside the realm, known as the foreigners, much to the displeasure of the councillors who actually held land and interests within the realm. Sigismund also had to pop up to Bohemia to deal with family matters, because his brother decided to cause a revolt by throwing a vicar into a river, but not from a high window. We'll get back to that later. In 1394, the rebel Ivan Horvat was captured. He was then brutally tortured to death on the orders of King Mary, while the former bishop of Zagreb, Paul Horvat, either died along with his brother or fled to Naples to serve King Ladislav, where he soon passed away. In 1395, Mary died in a horse-riding accident. Upon Mary's death, Vladislav II of Poland attacked, claiming the Hungarian throne through the claim of his wife and Mary's sister Hedwig, but that campaign didn't result in much and quickly ended. Hedwig herself would die in 1399.